Okay, so we are in the Parsha of Chayei Sara. So Chayei Sara is that interesting Parsha that even though the name of the Parsha means Chayei Sara, the life of Sarah, actually it's going to talk about the fact that at the end of last week's Parsha, she passes away. And in this week's Parsha, Abraham, her husband, buries her and purchases land to bury her and is involved in mourning for her. So the question is, why is it called the life of Sarah when actually there isn't a moment in this Parsha when she is alive? So that's the first question. So if we think about what our life is and what makes a meaningful life, especially now, which gives me the opportunity, just talking about the now, to dedicate tonight's learning, that the schus of our learning should be light and merit that goes to all the soldiers fighting in Gaza on the northern border, to all the people in Eretz Israel dealing with all these difficulties and struggles, the families of the soldiers, the families of the departed, they should all find comfort. Amen. But because we're living in a time of literally life and death, for all those soldiers, they go off into Gaza, they're not sure, are they going to come back? Are they going to survive or not? And I'm sure you've seen, because everybody's like looking at all these videos of the soldiers, certain things start to become apparent, and it's very interesting. For example, there's a story of someone who had been wanting to propose to his girlfriend and hadn't done it. And then right there on the base, he's like, I don't know how long I'm going to live for. I'm going to propose to you right now. And propose to someone. And I see there's a Sarah there, but I'm not sure which Sarah it is, but welcome, Sarah. So welcome to the class. So one soldier decides that he can't, he doesn't know what's going to be, but he wants to tell his girlfriend that he wants to propose to her. And there's soldiers making weddings on the base and just saying that they can't wait any longer. Things that are important have to be taken care of. I've been dating this girl, but I didn't tell her I love her and I want to marry her. Hi, Linda. I can't wait another minute. And then there's the other story of another soldier who wasn't Jewish, and he's fighting in the Israeli army. And he says, you know what, if I'm going to die in this war, I want to die as a Jew. So I need to do my conversion right now, so that when I'm going into the battle, I'm going to die as a Jew.
I didn't hear that one.
Yeah, so apparently the Rabbonim in the army gave him like a speeded up conversion. So why am I saying this? Because for the people that came late, this week's Parsha is called the life of Sarah, but really she passed away in the Parsha last week. And we said, why did she pass away? She passed away because in last week's Parsha, which we didn't get to actually during Shabbat, Aviva, who spoke at Suda Shlishi, she alluded to it just a little bit. She spoke, last week's Parsha was all about the Kedah, which is the commandment or the test of Hashem to Abraham to take his son, his beloved son, his to take Yitzchak and to bring him up and offer him as a sacrifice on Har HaMoriah. Well, that's pretty intense. And as Aviva explained, he had to surrender all of his constructs, everything that he believed in, everything he was attached to fulfill that command. And in the end, as he lifted his hand up with the knife, an angel grabs his hand and says, I just wanted to know that you would do it. I don't really need you to do it. I wanted you to show your commitment, and you don't have to sacrifice him. There's a ayil, a little lamb caught in the bushes over there. You're going to use that lamb, and you'll sacrifice that lamb, and that's really the sacrifice I need. I don't need Yitzchak. But we learn from our Meforshim that when Sarah heard about the story that Abraham had gone up with Yitzchak with the intention to shecht him, literally to sacrifice him, she passed away. Now, there's different interpretations of why exactly she passed away. One Perush says that the messenger said, your husband Avram took Yitzchak up the mountain to go sacrifice him. And as soon as Sarah heard that, she passed away, and she didn't wait to hear the rest of the sentence was, but it didn't actually happen. And he wasn't sacrificed, that she heard the news so quickly and she passed away. Another explanation that I read is actually she was told, in fact, that he wasn't sacrificed, and she was so happy and so relieved that in her joy and her kind of relief, she also passed away because her soul flew out of her body from relief. But in any event, it was on hearing about this whole story that she passes away. The rabbi who was the rabbi of the Warsaw Ghetto, and his name is, and he has a very interesting name. It's not so easy to get it right, but I'll read it. I wrote it down. Rabbi Kalonimus Kalman Shapiro. He was the rabbi in the Warsaw Ghetto, obviously the Second World War, and the Nazis are coming in, and life in the Warsaw Ghetto is very intense. And his explanation on why Sarah died, he says, Sarah died to show Hashem that we should not be expected to suffer unreasonable levels of pain. Which is really profound in view of recent things that have gone on, that according to this rabbi, that's why Sarah died, to tell Hashem that, you know, don't test us too much. Like telling Sarah, this child that she had when she was over 90 years old, she spent 90 years of her life being barren. And then finally she has this whole story with Hagar and, you know, and Yishmael, and then she has Yitzchak, and then when Yitzchak is 37 years old, apparently Avram was told to sacrifice him. That Rabbi Kalonimus Kalman Shapiro says, no mother should have to go through that. Even the thought that it could have happened, might have happened, almost happened, a person shouldn't have to live with this level of trauma. So I thought that that was very interesting, considering who said it and where he was when he said that. But in any event, so Sarah dies, and I started talking about the soldiers in the Israeli army, because what makes a life worth living? What determines what is life? And if we say, as many Meforshim have said, that even though she's passed away in this Pasha, the effects of her life are very much felt. And what is a life lived worthwhile? And when we look at this Pasha, we're going to see a life lived in a worthwhile way. So if I would ask you, like, and I don't know if you know what's in this Pasha, but you probably do, because I'm sure some of you have been studying Torah for many, many years. What is going to be in this Pasha that can be attached to that idea of Sarah lived a life worth living? And so in this Pasha, we're going to talk about those things connected to her life that were fundamentally of value. Anyone tell me? And if, yeah, Susan?
Sure. That she truly lived her life. They broke it down to 100, and I forget the numbers, 20 or 30 and 8. I forget the numbers.
Right, 120, 20 and 7.
She lived her life fully.
120 and 7. So you're saying that the way she lived her life left a tremendous impact.
Also,
so that,
her
yeah,
her potential. She was a self-actualized woman.
yes. Okay, so she lives life. So first of all, let's talk about that in of itself. We can just share the screen and go and see that first Rashi. And I have it. And where did it go? Because I have it. And why doesn't it why doesn't it I put it up, but then it's not there. So I know where it's there, and then it's somewhere over there. Where are you? Chabad.org. Where are you? Where are you? Oh, wait, not stop share. Not okay, let's see. Stop share. I think I have to find it and close everything else. I have to get this right. I thought I had it right, and it doesn't come right. So let's go back and find. Oh dear. Oh dear. I'm having technical problems. Here it is. Chayei Sara. Okay, come back to the Zoom. Come back to the Zoom. Where are you, Zoom? Good. Now share my Zoom. Share my Zoom. Share screen. Should be there somewhere. Still, oh, there it is. Okay. Phew, that was a little stressful. Okay, so it says, V'yihayu Chayei Sara Meya Shana Ve'esrim Shana Ve'sheva Shanim Shnei Chayei Sara. So she was 100 years and 20 years and 7 years, and these are the years of her life. So I don't know, Susan, if you can see the Rashi over there, if you want to read it, because it's the piece that you brought. Is it too small? Can you read it, or is it too small on the screen?
I'm not up. I'm just going to be a listener to.
Okay, so it says that, why does it say it 100 years and 20 years and 7 years? These are the days, these are the years of the life of Sarah. Because each, like Susan said, each aspect of time was sort of complete in itself. And when she was 100, she was like a 20-year-old in terms of her sin. Just like a 20-year-old hasn't sinned, even though she, after 20, she is liable to punishment. She was like at 100, she was as clean of sin as she was at 20. And when she was 20, she was as beautiful as she was when she was 7. And that's one explanation. Another explanation is that all of her years were equally good. And we often talk about equanimity, and it's one of the qualities of what we're supposed to cultivate in ourselves, in terms of having a balanced way of being, that there is a certain training or teaching that when good happens to us, we receive it in a certain way. When so-called bad happens to us, we receive it in a certain way, that everything that Hashem does for us should be equally good. It's all good. So for Sarah, that was like that. She had equanimity about her years, and they were all good. And then someone can say, that's quite a level, because she was 90 years old and she had been barren for all that time. Plus, she had been abducted into, I think, Paro's court and Avimelech's court, if I'm not mistaken. And she handled them both with aplomb, let's say. She had this whole situation with Hagar, and, seeing Hagar get pregnant and Ishmael being born, and she's still barren. But somehow she was connected, and I heard Diane Bloomfield talking today. Somehow she was able to be so connected to her inner truth and her identity and a person of light, that all of these, and we used this word last week, vicissitudes of her suffering or everything, that for her, she was like Susan said, she was intact. She had her sense of herself, she was this radiant persona in some way. So, hi, Suri, welcome. Welcome.
Who the person you mentioned is?
I mentioned Diane Bloomfield, and Suri actually knows her. She gives a class on Wednesday afternoon in the middle of the day. And if you'd like to be attached to that class, I can give you information. She's actually a really good teacher. She's a Torah teacher and a yoga teacher. So we have something in common, and I consider her my teacher because she's a very good Torah teacher and a very good yoga teacher as well. So I can give you that information afterwards. So we're looking for what makes a life worthwhile. And Susan's opening comment was that what makes a life worthwhile is the fact that she lived her days fully. She filled her days, her 100 was like 20, her 20 was like 7. She thought of all of them equally good. What else can make a person looking back at the end of their life and they can say, well, I can feel okay because at least I did such and such. So this isn't true for everyone, but in Sarah's case, that child that she was struggling so hard to have, that she was barren for so long, and it gave her so much pain because she didn't have this child, was the fact that Yitzchak did get born. And in this parsha, we don't only discuss that Yitzchak is alive and well and not sacrificed, but we take it to the next level. And the next level is, well, he's a nice Jewish boy. He's supposed to get married. And he's supposed to get married. And we have the whole story of the shidduch. So that's one way that Sarah's life continues into the future, in that she has descendants and she was able to fulfill her mission in creating the basis of this Jewish people family in the birth of Yitzchak and then the search for the shidduch of Yitzchak. So that's one aspect of her life, bringing a continuity into the future through that child. And just before I carry on, so that's one thing. And the other thing is that in this week's Parsha, we're going to discuss the first piece of land bought by a Jew, the first piece of Eretz Israel. Well, actually, it's the first piece of land that's bought and acquired by Abraham in Eretz Israel. And I want to look inside in the verses of exactly how that land was acquired. Because remember, at the very beginning of the Torah reading, when we said, Bereshis, bara Elokim, et hashamayim, et haaretz, and God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Rashi says, we're starting the Torah with this fundamental principle that God created the world, and he can give the world to whoever he wants because it's his creation. And when the non-Jews come and say, you stole the land of Israel, we can say, well, God created the land and he gives it to whoever he wants, and he chose the land of Israel to give to the Jewish people. But Avraham Avinu is smart, and he says, well, even though the Torah starts like that, I'm going to make sure that I buy the land, and I pay money for it, and I don't leave anything, even to that first opening verse in Genesis or Bereshit, because I know that our rights to the land are definitely going to be contested, and that's not going to be such a good thing. So we're going to look at that. But before we look at that, I just want to say one other thing, that this is an idea of Chassidus, that the Zohar teaches that Sarah represents the body and Avraham represents the soul. And first of all, the first question is, how come when Abraham was told that he has to sacrifice his son, he didn't pass out or have a heart attack. He literally was able to, although it was a crazy idea, there was something about Abraham that, as crazy as it was, and as much as it didn't make sense to him, there was some part of him that could sort of tolerate the idea to some extent. But for Sarah,
I don't mean to interrupt, but I learned that Rabbi Yitzchak Kerzner, you've heard of him, yeah? So
Yes.
he talks about in his series on suffering that Avram did cry. He
Okay.
did cry about Akedas Yitzchak. It wasn't.
Okay, I'm not saying that he did it without
No,
tremendous
no, no. I'm just
struggle.
pointing that out.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
it's an important thing. Like that doesn't take away from his urgings to and unquestioning faith to go and do it. But he was a human being, and
Right. Okay. It's a good point, but he didn't pass away and he didn't die on the news that such a thing could even happen the way Sarah did. So
well, she died because she found that he died, not because Avram Hashem asked Avram to do
there's
it.
a lot of, you came a few minutes late. There's a few different reasons why she passed away. Rashi says
I'm sorry.
Rashi says that she passed away when she heard that Abraham had taken Yitzchak up to the Akedah, and she didn't wait to hear the rest of it, but that he didn't die. She didn't wait. Just hearing that Abraham had gone to do it was enough to
Okay.
The soul left her body. So
okay.
Anyway, so there is a teaching that for Abraham, being that he is the soul, the idea that the teachings and the reality of things could stay in a kind of spiritual realm was, in a way, when I say things in a spiritual realm, if Yitzchak wouldn't have had a thriving life and he wouldn't have had progeny and he wouldn't have gone on into the world to live as a Jew, certain ideas of Abraham would stay real in the world, but they would be in a spiritual way. They would be ideas that weren't manifest in the world. But Sarah is the body. Sarah is identified with the body. For Sarah, things have to be real in the flesh. The idea that things have to be embodied, so to speak. And this is a really beautiful teaching. So the Zohar teaches that Sarah represents the body, whereas Avram represents the soul. Even after death, the soul still remains related to the body. So Avraham, the soul, comes to eulogize Sarah, the body, and to weep over. That's the second thing. Just forget about that. If I'll not focus on it right now. Hasidic teaching emphasizes the importance of the body as a tool in the service of Hashem. Since the ultimate purpose of creation is to sanctify the physical world, the body has a distinct advantage over the soul in that it is the means by which God's will is enacted. So this is like what you could say classic Torah yoga teaching, because it's through the body that we do mitzvot. Through the body, we can experience our intuition, our feelings, our insights. We can listen to our stomach when we get a gut feeling. We can have a hunch. We can have, our skin prickling. We could get shivers. We could get goosebumps. The body is something that has something. And it's also the ultimate purpose of creation is to sanctify the physical world. The body has a distinct advantage over the soul in that it is the means by which God's will is enacted. You could have all the holy thoughts that you want, but until you execute an action, it's not really going to help you. So, therefore, Hashem told Abraham, whatever Sarah, the body, tells you, listen to her voice, indicating that there's inherent superiority to the body over the soul. Although the soul is incomparably more refined than the body, nevertheless, in the times of Mashiach, we are promised that the superiority of the body will be revealed such that the soul will be animated by the body. So this is the Rebbe's Sichot based on the Zohar, and we are in Messianic times, and we're very close to the revelation of Mashiach. So this idea of the importance of the body and the idea that Sarah, the fact that if Chas v'Shalom, the Akedah would have happened, then in some reason for Sarah, this was even more intolerable than that. So the point reflects the differences in disposition between Abraham and Sarah. Abraham was willing to sacrifice his son, not to say he didn't cry. And he carried out the process as Hashem had commanded, because he knew he was following God's will. He was content with the spirituality which requires a person to negate the world and escape from, let's say, material existence. Sarah, on the other hand, could not cope with this idea, since her focus was to serve God within the world. As far as Sarah was concerned, Yitzchak's soul needed to stay in his body so that he could make the world a better, holier place. So,
before you go on, I just want to clarify something. You were reading before, and you were saying about in Messianic times, the soul will be animated by the body. How would you put that into understandable ideas?
Okay, so it's an excellent question, and
yeah.
I'm really happy you asked it. So it's a really good question. I think that I mentioned Diane, and I said she's a Torah yoga teacher, and I teach Torah and I teach yoga. And I think that when we start seeing if we anxious, or if we having a panic attack, or if we feeling shut down, and we start breathing, let's say, breathing deeply, breathing conscientiously, we can change our emotions and change our mood through our breath, through our body movements. If we do gentle stretches, if we start opening up our heart center, we're seeing that the way our body moves, we can affect our mood. That's one thing. Another thing we're seeing is that if we're feeling, let's say, well, it's a similar thing. If we're feeling depressed or down and we go and we walk, then our movements are affecting our moods and that. So that's one level, that the feelings, the emotions are following the movements of the body. But on a more spiritual sense, we could have all the thoughts and all the feelings that we want, but if we don't use our body to actually do actual movement, we're seeing that, as the Rebbe always said, Maisa hu ha'ika, the action is the most important thing, and action happens through the body, and the body plows the fields, the body plants the produce, the body takes care of the fruit and the vegetables. It's not ideas. And the more we come into Mashiach times, the more our consciousness has to come out of the head and start getting into our actions, all the limbs of our body. And also on Shabbat, I was teaching how to take care of yourself. If you're not connected to your body, you're not following where there's blocks of energy, where there's pain, where there's where parts of your self isn't flowing correctly, then you can't take care of yourself. The more you kind of integrate body and soul, the more holistically thriving you can be.
You know what, I just was thinking as you said this, mitzvahs that we do with our body elevate the neshama.
Right.
When you're doing a mitzvah with your body, it feeds your neshama.
Right. And you
elevates your neshama.
You can't actually do a mitzvah without your body. So that's it. So
Right.
We need the body. Okay. So so that is talking about So now let's go into the idea of the purchase of the land, because one of the things that Sarah is, and one of the things, I'm just going to mute you because there's a little bit of crickling and crackling. And when you want to ask a question, just unmute yourself again. So, so Sarah passes away, and then it says, and Sarah died, v'tamat Sarah b'Kiryat Arba. We all know where Kiryat Arba is. Some of us have been there. He Hebron. This is in Hebron, Be'eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan. And then it says, V'yavo Avram lispod, to make a hesped, l'Sarah, v'liv kota. And he came to cry over her death. So first of all, we see that she died in Kiryat Arba. Kiryat Arba is an interesting name because it means like Kiryat Sefer. I have a friend who lives in Kiryat Sefer. It's the town of the book, right? Kiryat Arba is the town of four. Which four? Which four is that? And it says, which is Hebron in the land of Canaan. And Avram came to eulogize her. So first of all, Kiryat Arba, Rashi tells us, and both the Rashis are things that are going to happen in the future. So the place has a name, and this is one of the cute things about learning Torah. It has a name, and Rashi tells us why it has that name. But the things that he tells us, not all the things have happened already, because there's no time in Torah. Torah, time is a construct that we kind of live with. So does somebody want to read Kiryat Arba? Why is it called the city of four? Does someone want to read where the four comes from? Linda, are you getting ready to read? I see you.
Yeah, trying to see it.
Yeah.
I think I've been put on the glass.
If you want, if anyone
Oh, I
wants to
do.
bring a chumash to class and read the Rashis in your own little chumash, you could
Yeah.
always do that. But anyway, yeah.
In
Kiryat Arba.
Kiryat Arba, the city of the four, so named because of the four giants who were there, Ahiman, Sheshai, Talmai, and their father.
Okay, so there are four giants. I don't know so much about them. It's a midrash, but the next one is very interesting. Another explanation.
Because of the four couples that were buried there, man and wife, Adam and Eve, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Leah.
So that's really beautiful. So Rashi's saying Davar Acher, another explanation is it's called the city of four because of four couples. Adam and Chava, Avram and Sarah, Yitzchak and Rivka, and then the last one's a little tricky because Yaakov had four wives. So who gets to lay with him in Ma'arat HaMachpelah? Yaakov and Leah. Okay, and he comes from Beersheba, and he comes to mourn and to make a hesped for Sarah. And then now this is really, really interesting because this is a negotiation, a conversation, a whole, what's the word? When you're selling, let's just see it. We're going to read it inside. And so Avram says,
The transaction, is that the word you're looking for?
Transaction, exactly. Thank you. I was looking for that word. I am a stranger and an inhabitant with you. Give me burial property with you so that I may bury my dead. So Rashi says, why does he say, Ger v'toshav anoichi? Ger is a stranger, v'toshav is a settler. I'm a stranger and a settler. Rashi says, why does he use these words, stranger and a settler? He says, if you want to call me a stranger, then sell me the property. And if you want to tell me that I'm a settler, I'll take it legally because Hashem already promised me this land. But either way, if you think that I'm a stranger, sell it to me. If you think that I'm a settler, I have every right to take it because Hashem has given it to me. So he says, I want to take some of this land and I want to bury my dead. So the sons of Chet answer, V'ya'anu b'nei Chet et Avraham lemor. They say to him, and this is a really like interesting language. You imagine you're in the shuk and you're trying to buy, a beautiful carpet, and you're haggling and you're talking to somebody in an Arab market. So the B'nai Chet answer Avram saying, Shema'eni Adoni, Nasi Elokim ata b'tochenu. Listen, my Lord, you're a prince of God in our midst. B'mivchar kavarenu, kover et meitecha, ish mimenu, et karu lo yichle mimcha mikvod meitecha. In the choicest of our graves, bury your dead. None of us will withhold his grave from you. You're a Nasi, you're a prince. Of course, we're going to give you the land, right? We're not going to stop you from burying your land. We respect you. You're a Nasi and everything. So Abraham gets up and he prostrates himself, and then he says, "V'yakam Avram v'yishtachu la'am ha'aretz livnei Chet." And then he says, "V'yadaber itam lemor." Im yesh et nafshachem livkor likbor et meti milfanai shemuni ufigu li be'Efron ben Sohar. He says, if it's your will that I bury over here, listen to me and speak to Ephron. And he says, tell Ephron is the person who owned this land, tell Ephron that he should give me the Marat HaMachpelah, which belongs to him, which is at the end of his field, for a full price. Let him give it to me in your midst for a burial property, for a full price, but kesev maleh. I want to pay full price, no favors, no gifts. I want to pay full price. Okay, so full price.
I'm sorry, I'm just questioning only because you said Hashem already gave him the land, and
Exactly.
he knows it, but as out of respect for
Out of respect
Ephron,
for Ephron, and out of a knowledge of what's going to be in the future and how every claim we have to the land is going to be contested. So even though Hashem has actually promised him this land, even though it's really legitimately part of his Yerusha from God, he still says, no favors, please. I want to pay full price. Full price. Look what happens next. So Ephron is sitting in the midst of this B'nai Chet, and he answers Avram. So everyone, it says, B'nai Chet, L'kol Be'ei Sha'ar Iron Lemor, Ba'aznei B'nai Chet, so that all of them can hear, everyone can hear. And everyone should hear what's going on. And he says, I've given it to you. This is a whole and in Chumash they don't waste a single word. He says, Lo Adoni, my Lord, Shema'eni, listen to me. Hasadeh natati lach, I've given it to you. V'hama'ara asher bo, and the cave that's in it, lacha natatiya, I've given it to you. Le'enai b'nei ami, in front of all the eyes of my people. Nasatiha lach kavor metecha, go and bury your dead. I've given it to you in front of everyone. Everyone's can see, everyone's got it, everyone gets it, everything. And then Avram bows down again and he says, please listen to me. I'm giving you money for the field. Take my money. I want to pay you for it. Take my money. And then this is so funny. So if Ron says to Abraham, he says, my Lord, listen to me, a piece of land worth 400 shekels of silver. What's it between me and you? Bury your dead. And then Ephron quotes him a huge amount of money. Huge. Like, okay, so you want to pay me. So what's it? Why should we quibble? So 400 shekels of silver. So Rashi 400 shekels of silver is worth. So Rashi explains to us that large shekels, each one was worth 100 smaller shekels. So it's like 4,000 shekels. He's like, I want to give it to you as a friend. Why should we talk? Blah, blah, blah. And then he says, give me 4,000 shekels, 400 big shekels. Really, it's really like 4,000 little shekels. So that's, so then what happens next? So then they took the field, and Abraham possesses the land in front of everyone, and he buries his wife over there. Do you think the Arabs don't still say that we stole Hebron? Do you think they don't still question our right? Do you think they don't still attack us? Do you think they don't still insist that it's theirs? Do you think in 1929 there wasn't a massacre in Hebron? Do you think that the soldiers and the army and the government was so scared that Jews should even live in Hebron that they wouldn't even let the Jews in because they were so terrified the Arabs would massacre them? And then Rabbi Levinger, actually the wife of Rabbi Levinger, right in the 80s, went into an old hospital, Beit Hadassah in Hebron, and the woman and children said, we are Jews and we're coming to Hebron and we're not moving. And I actually in 1981 went and spent a Shabbos in Hebron by these people, and they said, we are not moving out of Hebron. It's Avram purchased it. Why are we going to let the Arabs take us out? Because they, threatening to massacre us. Just by the way, they've done that a few times before, and they insisted in creating a Jewish presence in Hebron. But I just wanted you to see this incredible thing of this negotiation and how Avram made sure that even though it was promised by God, he pays 400 pieces of silver to Ephron, and everybody sees him purchasing Ma'arat Machpelah in Hebron. It's the first piece of land purchased by Abraham for the Jewish people, and it's still contested. So that's just a piece that I thought was interesting to share. And let me see if I told you all the things that I wanted to tell you about that.
Bracha, I
Yes.
thought that he just bought that plot which had Marsa Machpelah. I didn't think he bought the whole Hebron.
Well, even Ma'arat Machpelah, they contest.
Oh, okay, but
also it's not only the Ma'ara, because it says the field of Ephron that was at the Machpelah, which was facing Mamre, the field and the cave was in it, as well as all the trees that were in the field that surrounded
okay.
its entire border were transferred. Actually,
okay.
in here. So the
In the
field of Ephron,
transaction.
which was in Machpelah, facing Mamre, was established as Avram's possession.
Okay.
This included the field and the cave and all the
Thank
trees
you.
that were in the field. And then it says, Vayakam. Vayakam actually doesn't only mean transferred, it also can mean elevated, that it kind of came up. It was elevated through now being, it arose. See the Rashi on Yud Zayin. Let's just show the Rashi over there. It arose. It experienced an elevation, for it left the possession of a simple person and went into the possession of a king. The simple meaning of the verses, and the field and the cave that was within it and all the trees were established to Avram as a possession. So the trees are obviously not inside the cave, because caves don't grow trees inside. So that's what happened. And he buried Sarah in the cave of the field of Machpelah, facing Mamre, which is Hebron in the land of Canaan. So here it says basically what he bought was Hebron, which is Hebron in the land of Canaan. So it does look from here that he did purchase Hebron. So that's one piece that I wanted to look at.
Do people in general avoid not go to Machpelah just because it's a dangerous area?
Well, some people go and some people don't go.
I mean, Liz went. I know when she went to Israel, she told me that she wanted to go, and she took an Arab taxi there, and there was a whole interaction. She just sent me pictures of it, but I was wondering because I don't hear people saying that they go to Maras Machpelah, but my sister is
Oh
not.
no, a lot of people go. And when I
They
went
do.
when I went to Eretz Israel, when there was an intifada, my husband told me, don't go to any,
Right.
don't go to anywhere dangerous. But people take bulletproof buses to go in. I mean, they have 50,000 people for Parshas Sarah, Chayei Sara usually. And I went for Parshas Chayei Sara when I took Yosef to Eretz Israel the year before his, a few months before his bar mitzvah, because his bar mitzvah is by Hanukkah, right before Hanukkah. We went to stay in Hebron for Parshas Chayei Sara, and they have huge crowds that come. Actually, I can tell you a story about this, which is personal, because people would come to Hebron to want to stay for the Shabbos of Chayei Sara, and there wouldn't be so many places for them to sleep. So my second eldest son, whose name is Dovi, or Avram Dovi, he's married to Noy Hershkowitz. And Noy Hershkowitz's mother is a very holy person, unusual person, and she had a dream. And in her dream, she dreamt that people were coming to Hebron for Parshas Chayei Sara, and they didn't have any place to stay. And she was very upset about this. And then in her dream, she saw a huge tent. I've told the story before. She saw a huge tent, and a huge tent. And in the tent, she saw candelabra, chandeliers hanging from the roof of the tent. She saw the tables, lots and lots of tables laid out with real crockery, not plastic or paper. She saw real flower arrangements on the tables, and she saw many, 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 many people sitting in a big tent in a central square in Hebron. And my Machatenister, bless her holy soul, she woke up from that dream, and she said, this is a siman. I got to get a gavir, a rich person, to sponsor this. And I went and I sat in that tent with chandeliers and crockery and real flowers and hundreds of tables. And I mean, 50,000 people come to Hebron for Shabbos. And there's free food and these incredible tents of hospitality. And it's absolutely amazing.
Wow.
So that is a
Bracha.
true story. Yes.
So another way to go is that they have buses very regularly, daily, maybe even more than one from Jerusalem there. I think you take them at dawn, like at 6 a.m. for safety. But it's remarkable to go.
Yeah.
I did that with my daughter when she was married.
Yeah, I mean, we've been to Hebron a few times. When I was thinking of the bulletproof bus, I was actually thinking of Kever Rachel. When I went and my husband said, don't go anywhere dangerous. And I went to Kever Rachel in a bulletproof bus. And then when I got there, my friend's car, who I met there, her car was like parked up the road, and we just walked up the road to her car. So much for the bulletproof bus. But anyway, so that was the one thing I wanted to talk about, this purchasing of the land. And the
Thank
other
you.
thing that I wanted to talk about is this gifts that Keturah gave to her sons, or sorry, the gifts that, so in the middle of the Pasha, we have the whole story of the shidduch of Abraham. Now, Sarah is passed away. He needs to make a shidduch for Yitzchak, and he sends his servant Eliezer, and there's the whole story of how Eliezer comes to the well, and he says, if there's a nice girl and she offers not just me to drink, but my camels to drink, then I know she's the right girl for my master's son. And then Rivka comes to the well and she offers all his camels, and then he says, who are you? And she says, I'm the daughter of who does she say she is? I'm the daughter of Besuel, the son of Milcah, whom she brought to Nahor. And then there's the whole thing, and he gives her a bracelet, and he gives her rings and nose ring, and he goes to their home, and he suggests the shidduch, and then Rivka says yes to the shidduch, and then in the end, not the end, but he actually ends up taking Rivka back with him, and she comes back, and she sees Yitzchak davening in a field, and she's very taken with it. He looks very holy, and she falls off her camel, and basically it's a good shidduch, and he takes her into his tent, and then the miracles that had been in Sarah's tent, the candles lighting and the cloud above the tent and the challahs always being fresh, Shabbos to Shabbos, all those miracles come in the merit of Rivka. And then it says, and Yitzchak got comforted on the loss of his mother. So that's a very long story, very abbreviated into a very short story. But I just want to end today's learning with something that's at the end of the parsha, in the sixth part of the sixth reading, and I've spoken about this a lot, so I want to learn it inside before we end today. And it says, "V'Yosef." Yosef means to add on, like the name Yosef. V'Yosef Avraham, v'yikach isha ushma keturah. And Yosef added on, Avraham added on, and he took a woman whose name is Keturah. He took her as a wife. Okay, who is this wife? So Rashi says, this is Hagar. She was called Keturah because her deeds were as beautiful as incense, Ketoret, and because she tied, now this is one that I don't remember ever learning before, she wore a chastity belt. She tied, it says, fortified her opening, for she was not intimate with any man from the day she separated from Avraham. And the word for tying is katra. She closed off her private parts, so she has that name of Keturah. So I never remember learning that before, but I learned that now. So that's another reason why she's called Keturah. And then it says, and she bore him. So this is Keturah, who was Hagar. She gives Avraham 6 more sons: Zimran, Yokshan, Midian, and Yishbak, and Shua. And Yokshan begot Sheba and Dedan, and the sons of Dedan were Ashurim, Letushim, and Leumim. And then it says, and the sons of Midian were Ephach and Epher, and Enoch, and Abida, and Elda, and all these were the sons of Keturah. Now, this is the part that I want to look at. Pasuk Hey. V'yitein Avraham, and Avraham gave et kol ashelo leYitzchak. Avraham gives everything that he has to Yitzchak. So he has all these sons. He had Yishmael with Hagar first, and now he has these 6 more sons, but it says he gave everything he has to Yitzchak. Well, we want to know, like, what exactly does this mean that he gave everything he had to Yitzchak? What does it mean? So in the Medrash, it says Reb Nehemiah said he gave him a permanent blessing. For the Holy One, blessed be he, had said to Avraham, you shall be a blessing. And the blessings are delivered into your hand to bless whoever you wish. And Avraham gave these brachot over to Yitzchak. So it was what exactly it means that he gave him the blessing. He gave him the power to bless. He gave him the spiritual, I don't know, this special, I don't know, what do you think it means that he gave him a permanent blessing? Amar Reb Nehemiah baracha de'atike she'amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'Avram v'yihiyeh bracha habrachot mesurot b'yadcha levarech et mi shetirtzeh So he gave them over these brachas. He gave over the power of blessing to Yitzchak. What do you think that means?
So you know that there are people who have power of bracha. People go to the Ribnitz Rebbe, and I don't know why. So I read the book, and now I know why. You know, people have the gift. It's a gift to be able to give brachas. I mean, Reb Shlomo used to say, you know, I bless you, bless me back. He thought anybody can give brachas, but there is this idea that people have power, bracha.
So it does seem to look like, according to Reb Nehemiah, when it says he gave him a permanent blessing for the Holy One, blessed be he, had said to Abraham, you shall be a blessing. The blessings are delivered into your hand to bless whoever you wish. And Abraham gave them over to Yitzchak. So that's one explanation. That's the Rashi's explanation of what he gave over. There's other explanations, but we can leave that for now. But there's gifts but what did he give to the other sons? That's the interesting part. And it says, V'livnei hapilegesh asher la'Avraham natan la'Avraham matanot. He gave to the sons of the Pilegesh. So even though he married her here, she's called a Pilegesh, which is not really a full wife. But what did he give? Natan Avraham matanot. He gives them gifts. And then it says, V'yish lachem ma'al Yitzchak. And he sends them away, just like he sent Yishmael away. He sends these sons away. Bodenu chai kedma el eretz kedem. He sends them eastward to the land of the east. And it's interesting. So what actually, so here I told you over Shabbos, but you can look inside. It says, our sages explained that he gave them the name of impurity. A name for Hashem that's not a fully, like a name of impurity. Now, other Meforshim argue with this and say Avraham would never have given an impure name because he's a pure guy. Why would he have given an impure name? Doesn't make sense at all. So he says it's not that he gave him an impure name. He gave him a name of God for the ones who are impure. A name of God that the impure ones can use. In other words, not God's holiest name, but a name that can be given to the impure ones. That's the gifts that he gave to the sons of Keturah. And another explanation is that everything that all the gifts that Avraham had gotten from Paro and from Avimelech, he gave them that stuff because he didn't want to keep anything that he had gotten from these you know, he got gifts he had received gifts and he didn't want to keep certain gifts that had been given to him through Sarah. Because of Sarah, maybe he felt he came to those gifts in not the most straightforward way. So he gives those gifts to these sons of Keturah because he didn't want to take benefit of any of the gifts that had been given to him on account of Sarah, which means when Sarah was abducted into Pharaoh's palace, and then he was afflicted with a plague, and he realized he shouldn't touch Sarah. And when Avimelech took Sarah, and he was also afflicted in some way, and he, you know, Avram's like, I don't think I should keep these gifts. Let me get rid of them. And he gave all that to the children of Keturah. And then
Bracha, I'm sorry.
One second. Let me finish, and then you can ask.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And it says, and these are the days of Abram's life, and he lived 100 years and 70 years and 5 years. So he lived to 170 years, 75, and he expired, and he was gathered into his people. And I just want to show you this, that he was buried in Marat HaMachpelah, and guess who comes to bury him? Yitzchak and Yishmael. They both come to bury him in the cave of Marat HaMachpelah. And so he was buried next to his wife. And I thought that was interesting to see that at the end of the Parsha, Yitzchak and Yishmael are together when he gets buried. Okay, so that's, I wanted to just show you that part inside. And now I'm happy to take question. Yes, what's the question?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I
Your
I
questions
never
are all
knew about
good.
these 5 other sons
Six,
that
six,
Avram had with.
six other sons.
Oh, 6
Six others.
plus Ishmael.
Plus Ishmael, yes.
So I thought the whole idea was that was only with Hagar, and then he had Ishmael, and then Sarah, and then Yitzchak was born, so he didn't need to be with her anymore to get more children.
That
I
is
don't know the
true.
chronology if
Well, the interesting thing is that
Yitzchak
the
was
person,
born before those
the
other
interesting thing
brothers.
is if we go to the end of the pasuk right before, and it says, "V'yavi
Oh, no.
eha Yitzchak ha ohela Sarah imo v'yikach et Rivka v'yiten lo leisha," and he loved her. Wait, it's also I don't know where we learn it, but Yitzchak is the one who goes and gets Hagar and brings her back to Abraham. Yitzchak is the one actually who goes and gets her. I don't know where it says it, but yeah, it says Yitzchak was comforted on the loss of his mother, but it doesn't say here. But it says somewhere else, it's a known fact that the one who actually goes and calls Hagar and brings her back is actually Yitzchak. So maybe you didn't know about it, but it is here in our Holy Torah that once Sarah passes away, Avram remarries Hagar, and it's not for any purposes that Sarah had. He just does it, and he has these 6 other sons. It's in our Holy Torah, so it's good that you should know it, because there it is. And that's the story. So yeah. And I see that I had a message here, so let me just check my message. Okay, so yeah, so that is the story. Any comments or questions from anyone else? Anyone else have a comment or a question? Anything they want to say or share? So it says that when Hagar left Abraham, originally she wandered around and she got involved in the ways of her past, which was Avodah Zarah, but then she returned and she did tshuva. That's why her deeds smelled so sweet that she had that name Keturah. Yeah, any other comments or questions from anyone?
What's Keturah?
Huh, Linda?
Keturah, what's Keturah?
So so in the service in the temple, Ketores is the spices, the incense.
Oh,
The
okay.
incense offering was called Ketores, and Keturah has a connection to this sweet smelling idea of it's connected to the idea of Ketores, of the incense offering.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's is it inspiring for you to hear about our forefathers and our foremothers, or we just hearing about their lives and we don't know what we should be inspired by from these
Oh, I
stories?
love it. I love those stories.
Is it inspiring, or is it confusing, their life and things they do and how they do them? Because
No, it's very interesting.
that somehow when we study our forefathers and our foremothers, we supposed to get instruction on how to handle things in our life and live our lives better. You know, that when we pass away at the end of who knows how long, they should say she was like a 20-year-old at 100, and she was like 7 when she was 20, and you know, all her days were equally good, and you know, she had equanimity, she looked at everything as all good. Or you know, Abraham, you know, felt that he had a purpose in the world, and this giving of Yitzchak, these blessings and this power to bless, he was also giving him over the mission of the purpose of, what Abraham felt he is here in the world, to be a light, and, to the idea that he can give brachas is, to give that power of blessing, to be a blessing in the world, and that's what he hands over to Yitzchak.
I think it's very inspiring, and that's what we want to do with all our children, right? We want
Right.
them to become a light in the world.
Right.
To
Very,
use-
very, very much so. That is the point of kind of why we're here. That is sort of the point of what we're trying to create and what we're trying to be in the world. And now more than ever, when it's our right to exist in the world is so challenged, it's important to know what it is that we stand for. What do we stand for? Bringing that light into the world, that, Abraham proclaiming one God, a God of kindness, a God of love, a God of ches, of hospitality, a God of caring for others, how he acts to try and save Sodom. We didn't read it so carefully together, but he, trying to be an agent of good in the world. That is
right before class, I was watching I-24. Do you watch I-24? Israeli news?
no, I watch other sources of Israeli news, but not I-24.
So I was watching I-24, and they had a section where they were interviewing a reporter who had gone into Gaza just like yesterday, I think, or so, with the IDF, and they actually filmed did some filming inside of Gaza. And it's unbelievable, what the world accuses us of. Who do you think the Gazan people call out to when they need help? They call out to the IDF soldiers for help. Right now, Hamas the IDF is very good at letting people know when they have to clear out because something's going to be bombed in a few hours. And right now, Hamas is literally blocking roads and shooting their own people if they won't turn around.
Right.
And they know that the people who will have mercy and help them are the Jews.
Right.
They know.
Also, I've seen some footage of those tunnels, and they are so intricate. They have so many miles and miles and miles and miles of tunnels with electricity, and if they would have put all that money into building up their towns,
I know.
it's anyway. So we won't go into that track right now, but yeah, it is intense. Melissa, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, so what would Sarah do right now?
What?
What would Sarah do now?
What would Sarah do now? She would, she was very explicit that when she felt that her son was in danger or her mission was in danger, in no uncertain terms, she spoke to Avram and she said, get him out. She was a person married to the person who defines kindness in our world. Avram is the symbol of kindness, but she didn't hesitate. In last week's Parsha, she saw Yishmael being inappropriate. We discussed all different ways that could be interpreted, what it means inappropriate. But she also saw him wanting to get the inheritance, and she said, in no uncertain terms, we can't let our mission be damaged in the world. We can't let Yishmael hurt, damage, corrupt, kill, lure off the good path or whatever. She was very, very clear about what needed to be done. So the Jewish people following Sarah need to be very, very clear about, which it seems like, thank God they are, showing gevura, showing strength. Because if you what's that famous saying? If you're kind to the cruel, you'll end up being cruel to the kind. And so we have to be in order to be
assertive.
To prevent cruelty to our kind, we have to be assertive and, act with great strength now to protect our people, as Sarah did, to protect her child and her what would come forth from her. She was very mindful of taking care of that and not leaving things to chance. So that's what we can learn from Sarah.
Okay.
Anyway, we should
Yeah,
have
thank
peace,
you.
and our army should be successful, and they should finish the job before they should make sure that they finish the job, is what I'm very hopeful for, that they should keep
Me
going
too.
and not stop before
Yeah.
everything is.
Not let the Western world
Yeah,
pressure them.
exactly. Don't
About
pass.
Yeah.
Yes, Yakova, what?
a picture, and I don't know if it was valid, it was vetted or whatever. Somebody sent me a picture of the IDF and a bunch of Gazans marching with white flags together so that they would be safe to march to wherever it was that.
I'll tell you what it
Oh,
was.
yeah.
So I'll tell you what it.
How did they vetted all these people and they knew they were not Hamas? I mean, how did?
I'll tell you what it is. Apparently, that Israel opened an escape route from northern Gaza to southern Gaza. And they said during a certain period of time, the civilians from northern Gaza, they'll secure a passage to southern Gaza. And so maybe that's what it was, that they were letting the civilians evacuate from the north into the south. So that
But
could
then
have
how
been
do
what.
they know they're not aiding Hamas people by
Well,
doing
they
this?
don't, but the thing is that what they need to get at is all the launching pads and all the stuff that's been fighting the Israelis in the north. So if they can bomb all the tunnels and all the rocket launchers and all the stuff, that's really what they need to do. That's really what they. So are there civilians, some of them, that are evacuating to the south? Well, that's not where the rocket launchers are, not from the south. And all the apparently the headquarters of Hamas are not in the south. So if some people are going out in the guise of being civilians, but they sympathizers, or they even Hamas people, they're not actively fighting and they're not around the sites that need to be destroyed. So Israel's not interested in destroying every single person identified with Hamas. They're interested in destroying all the infrastructure of the terrorist activities. So if the people evacuate, even if they're evil as hell, but they're not.
How does the IDF who's accompanying them know
Well,
that themselves are safe from these civilians? I mean,
yeah,
the
well,
whole
they
holding guns at them as they march. I mean, what are they doing?
It's not going to be a perfect operation. It's just too
yeah,
complex.
I don't think that I think that they were armed, and I think that Hamas doesn't let them escape, and then Israel gets attacked in the press that we have all these civilians dying, so they don't want civilians around all the areas that they're bombing.
So if Hamas doesn't let them escape, then why are they letting
And
these
we get blamed.
white flags? I mean, this whole thing just doesn't compute.
Well, I think Israel is securing their escape now that they have control in the area.
Hamas tries to stop them, they're going to fight Hamas there.
Well, Hamas has been eradicated, I think, from those areas, maybe, or at least they don't have the power that Israel has now. Israel
Also,
has more power to
right.
secure that corridor of escape than Hamas has right now. Because
Also, it's important to remember that the top Hamas guys, they're not in Gaza. They're in mansions in Iraq, instigating all
I
this.
think too.
And Qatar, I meant Qatar. And it's going to be kind of like it was hunting Nazis. It's going to take years to get them all. They're going to get them all, but it's going to take a long time.
I heard, it's not even just like hunting Nazis. It kind of is hunting Nazis in the sense that I heard a while back, and I don't know why I don't hear this more often, especially now. I heard a long time ago that during World War II, Yimach Shimo's men in the Middle East, he had guys in the Middle East, and he had a plan to extend his influence into the Middle East, which he began. But by the end of the war, he didn't really get very far, or didn't really get to do anything other than make connections with people in the Middle East, Arabs, certain Arabs, and that the people who ultimately started the PLO were these people and their disciples. So that and to the extent that that ended up forming things like Hezbollah and Hamas and whatever else, that this really is fighting Nazis. It's not just fighting Nazi-like people, that this is part of why
Well,
tactics.
it's very possible. I mean, when Moshe Ganuth, who's a student of Yitzhak Ginsburg, when he spoke here last Monday night, he spoke about the idea of Amalek, and he says Amalek takes different forms in different generations. So it's an energy, you call it a Nazi energy or an Amaleki energy. So it was the Germans, and now it's these guys, and it's all hatred for whatever it is that we are.
Because
So-
there have been so many times in civilization where Jews and Arabs have been able to coexist, like in Spain before the Spanish Inquisition, and in even in part all over the Middle East, really. I mean, all these countries had Jews in them, and they coexisted in basic, harmony until a certain point.
But there
I
were
mean-
periodic pogroms, not as bad as Eastern Europe, but there were periodic pogroms. They had to live as dhimmis, third-class citizens. It was very insecure.
There is a comment that the conflict was really fanned by external forces like the British and other interests, like in this week's Parsha, it ends with Yishmael and Yitzchak together burying Avram. Is that like a siman for a conciliation? Will there be peace? I mean, the Islam movement has been so radicalized that it's hard to imagine peace between radical Islam and Jews, but between regular Jews and regular moderate, Muslims. The British started all this nonsense by dividing up the land, and Jordan was supposed to be in charge of the Palestinians. I mean, the whole geography of it is not, it's all manufactured, and now we're paying the price of all these horrible plans and divisions, and
I don't understand why they're mad at Israel. I mean, I know on a certain level why they want Israel, because they want everything. But on the other hand, why aren't they taking it out on the UN and on the British? They're the
because
ones.
it's irrational, because anti-Semitism is an irrational thing, and everybody's
No, I
milking
mean,
it.
I do get that, but why doesn't nobody pressure them, like say, hey, you're shooting at the wrong target here, or something,
That's
I
a
don't-
great question, Yakova. I don't have answers for that.
I don't think they had the mentality to even think back as far to the UN. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
it
That
is-
was before any of them were born.
effectively taken over the UN anyway,
But
but
even now,
They've
Yakova,
taken over
why?
the UN. How have they taken over the UN?
I just want to say one
I
thing,
don't
that
know
I
where
have
to
to
get into
go.
that question other than to say that the UN is a very pro PLO and anti-Jewish place.
Oh, and
I
they just
didn't know that.
elected Iran as the head of the Human Rights Commission, which is a
Yeah,
joke.
I mean, it's basically been taken over by everybody who has it in for the Jews. Everybody. I mean, thoroughly, outwardly, openly. I mean, yeah.
I mean, even
don't.
now-
I try not to pay attention. I'll just get too upset. That's why I don't even get involved.
Well, but
I don't
that's the
even.
answer to your question. Yeah.
Thank
Even
you.
now, and I want to end with this because I'm kind of, I got to go, but even now, you would think that there's enough legitimate facts to convince the Western educated world of certain things, like when you have gays standing for Palestine, when if you're gay in Palestine, you'd be thrown off a roof. if these things are facts, nobody cares about facts. It's an astounding thing that facts have very
Unbelievable.
little to
Right.
do with people's emotions, and it's
Our
very
New York City school system is having a big walkout, begging, like saying that they want a ceasefire. This is happening tomorrow. And school administrators are allowing it to happen.
Where? Where
it's
is it?
nonsense. There's
New York
no
City,
truth.
it's the DOE of New York City, 5
Are you
boroughs.
serious?
They're not
Department of
sponsoring
Education.
it, but they're not doing anything. They're not saying, you know, students will be marked as truant or what, nothing. They're just letting it happen.
Boy, oh boy.
And they're having a teach-in, which I bet is going to be filled with propaganda.
Well, listen,
It is.
there's so much to talk about. I can let you talk about this if you want. I won't close the chat. You can stay and
I gotta
discuss
go
it if you want.
Frustrating.
There's a lot to say. I don't even have the words to say it. It's not rational. It makes no sense. The
Doesn't.
Jewish position from the time immemorial, it's not logical. They hate us, whatever we do. We try, we bring, you know, advancements, morals, justice, you know,
That's our job.
medicine,
That's our mission.
inventions, water, doesn't matter. You know, for some reason, it's some crazy thing and it's going mad in the world. And the more mad it goes, the more illogical and irrational it appears to be. So the only thing is to realize that we're very privileged to be Jews, to have a Torah, that God, to be attached to godly principles and not weird hate principles, to stand up for what's good and true and kind and just. And the rest of the world is kind of mad, and just let them be mad and just, you know, have faith and trust and
I mean, Hashem
know that
shows
you're
us that
privileged to
it's
be a
sort of
Jew,
our,
because they all kind of, it's just irrational and illogical and
right.
ridiculous. So
It is.
with that, I'm going to end because I'm kind of yeah, I need to
Okay.
Yeah,
go.
me, I have to go
But
too.
thank
All
you
right,
for the
thanks so much,
conversation.
Thank you,
Bye.
Thanks
everyone.
to everyone who
Thank you,
came, and thank
bye.
you for the questions. I do appreciate the questions.
You
And have a good night.
you
Thank you
too.
too.
Okay,
Have a
Bye.
good
Good
week.
night,
Papa
everyone.
Good night, everyone.